What is going down, my YouTube family? It is your boy Zeri from the XMG coming back at you. Get out the next installment in the tier list, Pride. This is a huge ass faction, guys. So I'm going to try to get through it as fast as I possibly can. So if you have questions about characters that I might not have answered, I won't be going into as in-depth because I don't want this video to be 50 minutes long. So let's get into it quickly and see where we were. Looking at the list, we got 4 legendaries, 8 rares, 7 uncommons, 11 commons, and 8 trash characters. So where are Pride going to fall into this? Without further ado, let's get started. Alright, we have Raval. Raval is a fighter, warrior, gladiator, and a leader. So let's take a look at his move kit real quick. His move kit, 240 physical damage and inflicts bleed for 2 turns. Potency, only one of the potency tenacity checks. Then his second ability, Swipe, is an AoE where he deals physical damage to all enemies at 240%. His Eviscerate deals 400% of physical damage to an enemy. If the target is bleeding, he recovers 75% turn meter. So that is fantastic. We need that bleed effect. Then his Bloodlust, Raval deals 20% more damage for each stack of bleeding on the enemies. This is an awesome passive. Fantastic passive for his move kit. And I wish we saw more abilities like this on characters that need them, and we've gone over plenty in the past. And his leadership ability is that all allies from the Pride gain 30% of their maximum health and a 50% chance to restore 1 turn to a random ability at the start of their turn. Not a terrible leadership, not the best. So looking at his move kit, what's really good for me is he's a damage machine. He has a hell of a lot of kind of plug and play viability with his bleed and being able to inflict bleed and then getting more damage off of bleed. So with a Snorri or a hard orc, and if you watch the new orc that came into the game, Hera, he has synergy with her. That video just came out before this one. Then let's get into his stats and see what we're looking at there. He has a base speed of 130. That is just freaking terrible. I'm sorry. It is just downright crap. For a damage dealer to start at 130, just bad. Just bad. Then, health and shield combination, we are coming in right around 55k to start. So survivability is actually pretty damn good with him. He's not a glass cannon, so that is a big plus for him. Physical damage to start is at 3174, so that is excellent. Then his critical chance is at 21.8%, kind of on the low end. And his armor to start is not terrible. He has great physical armor, but all in all, I would like to see that a little bit better. So where do I have Raval coming in at? Raval for me is a very high tier uncommon. He is much like Snorri. He is much like Rin the Unseen, where he can deal some insane amount of damage. But his low speed makes you choose between damage and speed. His subpar critical chance really hurts him. And then the RNG on his potency with bleed. And he really needs to be paired with someone else who can inflict the bleed, like a Snorri or a Hera or hard orc, somebody like that, to maximize his full potential. So that is why he comes in as an uncommon for me. Next up on the list, we have Hera. Hera is a Pride Tactician warrior and leader, of course. Going over her move kit, her basic ability, 250 physical damage, and she gains a stack of combo for 4 turns. This effect can't be moved or prevented. So really, she's just doing her basic and giving herself the combo ability, which goes into her second ability, which is Shred. It deals 370 physical damage and removes all stacks of combo, dealing an extra 40% of her physical damage for each stack removed. So you really don't want to use this move until you have as many stacks as you can get on your character, which would be 4 before they start going away. So the amount of damage that can be done from this ability is great, but the fact that you can't really use it for a while kind of sucks. So it's a plus and a minus for me. Her Oasis Shadows, she gains dodge increase and a critical chance and applies both to one ally for 2 turns. All allies gain invisibility for 2 turns. So this is huge This is a very, very good move, and it's probably her best ability in my opinion. Passive ability is that if she doesn't take damage, she gains invisibility for 1 turn and recovers 30% of her turn meter at the end of her next turn. So she's restoring her turn meter, which is plus. And then her leadership ability, all allies from the Pride gain a 20% dodge increase. When the battle starts, all Pride defenders gain taunt for 2 turns, healers and tacticians gain invisibility, and Pride fighters gain a damage increase. I still think, in my opinion, this is the best ability or best leadership ability for the Pride. But depending on the situation, it's not. But giving Salvador a taunt right away is absolutely phenomenal. And she can increase the survivability by putting people under stealth. My one big drawback on her move kit, well, there's actually 2, and one I already talked about, is the fact that we can't really use her second ability until her combo stacks are up to maximize its potential. The other thing is that she's constantly gaining invisibility, and it really doesn't play into her move kit other than the fact of if she doesn't get hit, she gains invisibility. Oh, wrong one. There it is. She gains invisibility. And then she recovers her turn meter at 30% at the end of her next turn. I really wish if she was invisible, she did more damage, or if she attacked with her basic when she was invisible, it would give another additional stack of combo. That would be a fantastic passive for her. But it's just not there. So looking at her stats, what do we have? We have a base speed of 143. Not terrible, but not the best. But her health and shield combination is at 33k to start. Extremely squishy. Physical armor and magic armor are both below 30% to start. Critical chance is extremely good at 27.4%. And her potency is at 31%. So she's so squishy. I understand why she goes under, the stealth quite a bit. But I just wish there was more we could to keep her alive, essentially. So let's see where I have Hera ranked. All right, so here's where Hera comes in for me. I have her as a common character. The fact that you can't really maximize her move kit till later in the game, and she is so hard to keep alive, really is a negative for me. And the fact that she constantly gives herself an invisibility, and it really does nothing to help her out except give her turn meter at the end of her next turn, when she's already extremely squishy, just makes her a classic common character, in my opinion. She has some good stuff. Other than her leadership, she wouldn't be used. If she didn't have that leadership, she would not be used at all in a Pride team. There's so many other good Pride characters out there. So she is a common character for me. Next up on the list, we have Salvador. Salvador is the defender for the Pride faction. Looking at his move kit, 210 physical damage, and a 40% chance to gain a shield equal to 10% of his maximum health. So he's doing a little bit more on his basic to increase his survivability. So that is a big plus on a defender. 1 at a time, 400% of physical damage, and gains taunt for 2 turns. Can be used on his first turn if you don't have a Hera in there, so that is a plus. Then his steel shell ability is just downright nasty. Decreases all damage by 90%. With a 50% chance to gain debuff immunity for 2 turns. If you get that debuff immunity on the steel shell, just watch out. He is so good when that is up. He does not die. And then his passive ability, it increases his physical armor by 35%. And then an additional 5% for each living Pride character in the party. So not bad. I wish it was less and covered both type of damages, because he still does get shredded by like a Freezard, a Ember. If he does not have his steel shell ability up, he can get nuked pretty quick. So let's take a look at his stats here. His speed is at 95, and that is just horrendous even for a defender. So you definitely got to have speed secondaries plus that northwestern or northeastern rune with speed on it to really get him up to where you want to be for a defender. His health and shield combination to start is fantastic. It is over 60k, almost 61k, so that is awesome. He is beefy and meaty. Now his physical armor is top notch already, and then you're putting more on his passive, so that is kind of weird for me the way that works. His magical armor is still really good, but I just wish his passive benefited both. Critical chance for a tank, 19%, who the hell cares? But it is low. And his potency is at 46% with a tenacity of 32%. So high potency for not needing it kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Salvador is a really good defender. He is like the truest defender in the game, and I really like what he can bring to the party. Outside of pride, though, he's not as viable. Keep that in mind. But his really low speed is a drawback, and the fact that he can still be shredded by magic damage before his steel shell is also a big drawback for me. So where do I have him ranked? I have Salvador coming in as an uncommon because he is a exceptional tank for the Pride faction. He's the only one they got, but still, he's usually the last one always alive, and that's what you want from a defender. He can taunt on his first turn. His steel shell ability pretty much makes him invincible. So he comes in as an uncommon. He's a lower uncommon, but he is still an uncommon character. He is right along the lines with a Rantha. Very low uncommon, but brings so much to the Pride faction that that's where he belongs. Next up on the list, we got the latest addition to the Pride faction, and that would be Rinara. Rinara is the healer for the Pride faction, and if you watch my noob series, she is underwhelming. She's still a very good character, but pretty underwhelming for the Pride faction. Looking at her basic ability, it deals 210 magic damage and applies regeneration to an ally with the lowest health for 2 turns. Second ability, Mass Recovery, is her mass heal, and then applies regeneration for 3 turns. Her Resurrection is phenomenal. It restores a random ally for 50% of their health and applies regeneration for 2 turns. Now, I wish you could choose the enemy or the ally that is resurrected, but that would just, I think, make her too OP, but still at the same time, it would be nice. Or if she took priority on the tank of the group, that would be great, but that's where that comes in. And her passive ability, if Rinara or her allies have 2 stacks of regeneration at the end of her turn, she recovers 15% of their health and 15% of their shield. If their health is full after that, she applies Cheat Death for 2 turns. So, a lot needs to happen in this passive for it to be at its full potential. So, really don't like that aspect of it. And as you all know, I'm really not a fan of the regeneration mechanic in general. It's really dependent on the speed of your team, and Pride is kind of a slower faction. So I wish she did more healing, not regeneration healing. So that's what I feel about the regeneration. Looking at her stats, she has a base speed of 152, not bad. Health and shield combination, 53k to start. That's really good for a healer. Her armor is not bad at all. Right around the 30 mark for each, so not terrible. Critical chance is at 19. Again, you don't really need it on a healer, but 19 is pretty low. Potency 65%, and she doesn't need it. Seems like a waste in her move kit. So Rinara brings some good things to the Pride, and she's definitely a must in a Pride party, in my opinion. So let's see where I have Rinara ranked. So we talked a lot about Rinara, and if you watch my noob series again, you'll kind of understand a little bit more about how I feel for her. But she comes in as an uncommon. She's a good healer, and she brings a lot to the table. But she's not a rare character, which I was hoping she was going to be. The reason she's not a rare character for me is the regeneration. I just don't like regeneration healers. Again, it is based on the overall speed of your team, and people can die before that regeneration can hit them. And then her passive ability has way too much going on in it to make it reach its full potential. So that is why Rinara comes in as an uncommon for me. Next up on the list, we have Kagi. Kagi is a fighter, mage, and dragon slayer. So his move, 160 magic damage with a 50% chance to repeat the attack. So a 1 in 2 chance for a double attack. Okay, but 160 kind of on the low end. Then his AoE Tornado, 190 with a 50% chance to increase allies' accuracy for 3 turns. Damage is really low on an AoE, and accuracy increase. Okay, I guess. Just pretty underwhelming. And then wind speed, he gains haste and applies it to 4 allies for 2 turns. I'm okay with that. Does increase the speed, and with Rinara as a healer, that does help. And then the passive ability increases magic damage by 30%. If Boris is in the party, when the battle starts, Kagi and Boris gain damage increase for 2 turns. I don't know who that is. So, yeah. That's where that is. But giving himself more physical damage, or more magic damage, is definitely a plus. Now his move kit. Base speed of 149, very middle of the road there. Health and shield combination, though, we are looking at 30k. Extremely squishy. Is a mage, so that is to be expected, but just really squishy. Magic damage at 3,000. Very good place to start. Critical chance 19, so that sucks. Potency's at 63%, so that is awesome. So all in all, with Kagi, he's okay. He's just an okay character in my mind. His basic with a chance to hit, the damage he deals is extremely low percentage, even on an AoE at 190. I mean, we're seeing AoEs hit for 375. I mean, just very underwhelming. The haste is very big, especially with a Rinara on the team. So where does Kagi come in for me? So Kagi comes in for me as a common character. I think when I first did this, I had him as trash, but he's definitely not a trash character with the addition of Rinara. He is a low common for me. Just, he's okay. That's really all I got to say on Kagi. Sorry. Next up, we have Yogi. Yogi is my favorite character design in the whole game. I just absolutely love the way he looks, but that can't be factored into a tier list. Sandstrike deals 240 magic damage with a 50% chance to inflict slow for 2 turns. If the enemy is poisoned, there is a 30% chance to stun them for 1 turn, so he does need a lot of potency. His Sandstorm deals 220 magic damage to the target and 110 to all other enemies and blinds the main target for 2 turns. So again, we're seeing potency with some magic damage, but blind, that's pretty nice. But you have to be cognizant of who you're focusing on when you use Sandstorm. Then his Sands of Time is just an amazing move. Decreases the cooldown of random abilities to the target ally for 2 turns and restores 50% of their turn meter. If this was a random ally, it would not nearly be as good. But since you can select the ally you want it to go to, makes it hands down amazing. Then his passive ability increases his potency by 30%. If Vorian the Trickster is on the battlefield, they both gain an additional 30%. That's huge for Vorian the Trickster because he has 0 potency. So if you're running Vorian, you definitely want to have Yogi in there. Looking at Yogi's stats overall, he has a base speed of 128. That sucks. His health and shield combination is at 42,000, right in that range. So overall, fantastic for a mage. His critical chance is at 15%, so that is just downright shit. Then his potency is at 22, but he's giving himself potency on his base or on his passive, so that's a plus there. And then his tenacity is at 27%. So all in all, Yogi is a great character. The fact that he can target the ally to reduce their cooldowns and give them turn meter is awesome. He has a blind that it only needs 1 of the potency tenacity checks on the main target on his AoE. And then on his basic here, the fact that he can slow them at a 50% clip and then stun them if they're poisoned, which brings in the Vorian the Trickster synergy, is just really, really good in my opinion. So where do I have Yogi rank? Yogi has a lot of possibility in this game, and he has some plug-and-play viability, which makes him an uncommon character in my opinion. The fact that he can target the ally to reduce the cooldowns and give them the turn meter pushes him into that uncommon territory. There is really no other character in this game that has that move kit. That has that move in their move kit, I should say. And the fact that I don't think he's at his full potential yet and can be used outside the Pride faction definitely make him an uncommon character. Next up on the list, we have Bori. He is a fighter, ranger, and a gladiator. Starting with his move kit, 200 physical damage, and then if the target has the lowest health in the party, this attack deals 250% instead. That's an okay basic ability, but you don't have a Dispeller on the Pride, and trying to get around that taunt is going to be tough, but it does help you finish off the tank quicker. Not the best, not the worst, but I wish that did a little bit more. His wounding arrow, 300% of physical damage, and inflicts bleeding for 2 turns. So definitely can play into the Raval synergy. So that is really nice. Wind power, he gains critical damage increase, a damage increase, and a haste increase for 2 turns. If Kagi is on the battlefield... he receives the same buffs. They must have changed names on the test server from Bori to Boris. So that makes more sense in the Kagi synergy. And then they recovers 30% turn meter as well. So I didn't know they changed the names on the test server, so my bad. But all in all, that is a really good move. You can pop that right in the beginning, and then you can start doing some damage. And then Unity, his passive ability, increases physical damage by 10% for each living character in the party, Pride character in the party. If Kagi is on the battlefield, both Kagi and Bori gain an armor increase for 2 turns at the start of the battle. This ability is nice. It's great if you're running it with a Pride. Other than that, it sucks. It gives you nothing. If you want to, this just takes down his plug and play viability to nothing. You essentially just remove his passive if you're not using him with Pride, and that is a humongous drawback for me. Now, looking at his stats, he has a base speed of 159. Excellent. Health and shield combination, 44k. Not the best, not the worst. His armor, especially his magic armor, is very good. His critical chance is at 31%, so that is fantastic. And his potency is only at 29%, so definitely not terrible, but not the best. So Bori brings some good things to the Pride party. He's a massive damage dealer who can inflict bleed. He has some synergy with other Pride characters, but his plug-and-play viability really, for me, is next to nothing because you're losing so much damage because his passive only is for Pride characters. So where do I have Bori ranked? I have Bori coming in as an uncommon. Much like Raval, Snorri, Wonderlua, their damage is off the charts. But they don't bring enough to make them rare, if that makes sense. In my head, I know what I'm talking about. That doesn't help you guys. But definitely a uncommon character because of the damage he can deal within the Pride faction. But just doesn't do enough to push him to that rare status. And how hard he is to farm out of the tournament shop. I'd rather have Lake out of there. I'd rather have Wonderlua out of there before him. So he is a middle-of-the-road uncommon for me. That's where he stands. Next up is Vorian the Trickster. He is a tactician rogue bounty hunter. Looking at his moves, 230 physical damage and an 80% chance to poison the target for 2 turns. Now, he has, which we'll get into in the stats, but 0 potency. And the fact that at level 6, you still have to go through double potency tenacity checks is a huge drawback for me on this character. Sneaky maneuver, 360 physical damage, deals 420 physical damage if the target is poisoned. And then it poisons the target for 3 turns. So we're only getting the 1 potency tenacity check there. And he can do some pretty crazy damage if they are poisoned, but again, 0 potency. Piercing poison, 320 physical damage, removes all stacks of poison, dealing 100% piercing damage for each stack remove. and piercing damage ignores the armor. So awesome ability can really amp up the damage, but the fact that you're removing them as you do it just kind of sucks because you're losing that damage over time ability, and it decreases everything else you're trying to do with his kit. So I really don't like the way that moves together. And then when this ability applies poison, it has a 30% chance to apply 2 stacks instead of 1. Okay, so he can double up his poison output. Probably his best move, and not a bad passive for him. Looking at his stats, he has a base speed of 159, which is very, very good. His health and shield combination, though, we are looking at 35k, so still pretty squishy. Physical and magical armor suck on this character. 25, 26 range to start, just terrible. And 0 potency. How can a character reliant on so much potency have 0? Doesn't make any sense to me. So where do I have Vorian the Trickster rank? It shouldn't be a shock to everybody, but Vorian the Trickster for me comes in as trash. He has to be a trash character. How can someone reliant on so much potency have 0? I'm going to say it again. 0 potency. Everything else that he does is okay, and he would probably be a common character if he had potency. But the fact of the matter is he has 0 potency. You have to put him with Yogi. He's taking away things to do his damage and other moves to do more damage in one of his moves, so I don't know. He's just trash. Moving on. So there you have it. There is my tier list for the Pride faction. Looking at it, I think it's fair. They don't have any lights out amazing characters. Everybody in this faction needs somebody else to make them reach their full potential. This faction is so hard because you can't put everybody in a team for everybody to reach their full potential. It just seemed, Kagi and Bori have a synergy. Well, you're going to take out Raval to put in Kagi? I don't think so. Are you going to put Vorian the Trickster in so Yogi can reach his max potential? Absolutely not. Hera and Salvador, great. But if she's not the lead, their synergy's worthless. This whole team is just kind of a mess to me. And they got a lot of potential within that faction, but to get them to all work properly, there's not enough spots in your team. That's why I have Pride where I have them. And I know everybody was looking forward to this Pride faction, and you guys can tell me I'm wrong, but from what I've used with them, they just don't have a lot as an overall faction to make me be like, wow. I was hoping Rinara was going to bring that to them, but it didn't. So I'm sorry, but that's what I think about Pride. Coming up next, we have our last faction in the tier list, Demons. So let me know what y'all think about this Pride one. I'm sure I disappointed quite a few of you out there, but in my heart, I believe I ranked them right, in my opinion. Demons is up next, and they got a lot of good characters in there with a lot of potential. So that's what I got for everybody today. I love y'all. I'll see you in the next one. I'm out.